Marcus was silent for a moment, considering her words. Before I joined the Alliance, my whole identity was wrapped up in being the strongest. Championships, records, endorsements. That was who I was. I enlisted because I wanted to be part of something bigger than myself, to use my strength for something that mattered. He turned to face her. Being a symbol, a titan for the Alliance, it's not so different from being a champion, I guess. Except this time, it's not just about me. It's about all of us. Arya smiled. That's what makes a true soldier. Hail. Understanding that your individual strengths, whatever they may be, serve the collective. Their conversation was interrupted by an announcement over the station's comms. Major Voss and Specialist Hale, report to Commander Donovan's office immediately. They exchanged a glance before heading to the commander's quarters. When they arrived, they found Donovan reviewing reports with an expression that mixed relief and caution. Major, Specialist, he greeted them. I've just received word from Earth Command. The Hagor High Command has agreed to formal peace talks. It seems our little demonstration, combined with the imminent arrival of Alliance reinforcements, has convinced them that taking Galatea Station would be too costly. That's excellent news, sir, Arya said. Indeed. But that's not the only reason I called you here. Donovan activated his view screen, showing what appeared to be a news broadcast from Earth. It seems your exploits have attracted attention beyond our sector. The screen showed footage, grainy and clearly taken from a distance, of Marcus working on the station's exterior. Somehow, one of the Hagor surveillance recordings had made its way to Earth media. The caption read, Titan of Galatea, Alliance Super Soldier, faces down Hagor fleet. Marcus groaned. Super Soldier, really? It gets better, Donovan said with a hint of amusement, scrolling through more headlines. Human Hercules halts Hagor hostilities. The man who bench-pressed a battlecruiser, and most ridiculously, Alliance deploying enhanced warriors, the future of interstellar combat? Arya couldn't suppress a laugh at Marcus's increasingly horrified expression. Congratulations, Specialist. You're famous. Again. Earth Command is interested in your capabilities, Donovan continued, his tone becoming more serious. They've requested that you return to Earth once the situation here is stabilized. For what purpose, sir? Marcus asked, though he suspected he knew the answer. Officially, for debriefing and reassignment. Unofficially. Donovan shrugged. They want to understand what makes you different, whether it can be replicated. Marcus felt a familiar weight settling on his shoulders, the burden of exceptional ability. And if I decline? That would be difficult, given that you're an enlisted soldier, Donovan replied. But I've taken the liberty of including my personal recommendation that you remain assigned to Galatea Station, at least until the peace with the Hagor is formalized. You've become something of a symbol to them, the human who earned their respect. Thank you, sir. Don't thank me yet, Donovan said wryly. Being a living symbol comes with its own challenges, as I'm sure you're discovering. He turned to include Arya in his gaze. Both of you have performed exceptionally during this crisis. Whatever comes next, know that Galatea Station owes you a debt that can't be easily repaid. After they were dismissed, Marcus and Arya walked together through the station corridors, each lost in their own thoughts. The news of Marcus's sudden fame had spread quickly, and they received nods of recognition from nearly everyone they passed. What will you do? Arya finally asked. If Earth Command insists on studying you? Marcus considered the question. I don't know. Part of me understands their interest. If there are others like me, or if my abilities can somehow be shared, it could help the Alliance. But another part doesn't want to be reduced to a genetic curiosity, Arya finished for him. Something like that. I've spent my life being defined by my strength. I thought joining the Alliance would let me be defined by my service instead. For what it's worth, Arya said, I think you've already redefined yourself, not as the man who can lift impossible weights, but as the man who used that ability to save lives and prevent a war. That's a legacy worth having." Marcus nodded, taking comfort in her words. Whatever Earth Command decided, whatever the future held, he had found something he'd been searching for since leaving competition: purpose. His strength had always been extraordinary, but now it served something beyond himself, a cause greater than personal glory. "I should prepare for the peace delegation," Arya said, checking her timepiece. "Apparently, having the officer who orchestrated your demonstration present will help the negotiations." "And I should get back to moving heavy things," Marcus replied with a small smile. "It's what I do best, after all." As Arya turned to leave, she paused. "You know, there's an old Earth saying, 'With great power comes great responsibility.' I think you understand that better than most." Marcus watched her go, reflecting on her words. The burden of exceptional ability had always been with him, but now it felt different, shared, purposeful, meaningful. He was still Titan, still defined in part by his extraordinary strength. But he was also something more: a soldier of the Alliance, a defender of Galatea Station, a symbol of human potential. And somehow, that made the burden lighter. In the weeks that followed, as peace negotiations progressed and the immediate threat of war receded, life on Galatea Station settled into a new normal. The arrival of Alliance reinforcements strengthened their position, and the Haegor, impressed by both the Alliance's strategic cunning and the demonstrated capabilities of its personnel, agreed to formal territorial boundaries that respected Galatea's position. For Marcus, however, the spotlight refused to dim. Earth media continued to speculate about the Titan of Galatea, with theories ranging from secret military enhancement programs to natural genetic mutations. Alliance Command had issued a carefully worded statement, neither confirming nor denying the more outlandish claims, using the ambiguity to their advantage in ongoing diplomatic relations. 2 months after the standoff with the Haegor fleet, Marcus received the orders he had been both expecting and dreading: temporary reassignment to Earth for specialized debriefing and evaluation. Though Donovan had fought to keep him at Galatea, the political pressure had become too great to ignore. On his last evening before departure, the station crew organized an impromptu gathering in the recreation hall, part farewell party, part celebration of the peace that his actions had helped secure. Marcus had never been comfortable as the center of attention, but he found himself genuinely touched by the gestures of respect and gratitude from his fellow soldiers. As the gathering was winding down, Sergeant Volkov approached him with a small, wrapped package. The scarred weapons specialist had become something of a friend in the months since their mission aboard the Valkyrie. "A parting gift," Volkov said gruffly, extending the package. "Something to remember Galatea by." Marcus unwrapped it to find a medallion, a replica of an ancient Earth military decoration, but modified with the Galatea Station insignia and an etched image of a figure lifting what appeared to be a section of starship hull. "The crew had it made," Volkov explained. "Not official Alliance issue, of course, but..." He shrugged, uncharacteristically lost for words. "Thank you," Marcus said, genuinely moved. "I'll carry it with me." As the party continued around them, Dr. Nix found her way to his side. She had been surprisingly respectful of his privacy since their return from the Haegor encounter, though he occasionally caught her observing him with scientific curiosity. "I've been authorized to accompany you to Earth," she said without preamble. "As the medical officer most familiar with your physiology." "Should I be concerned?" Marcus asked. Nix shook her head. "I've included my full observations in my reports. Your abilities, while extraordinary, appear to be natural variations rather than the result of external enhancement. Earth Command will want to understand the genetic basis. Of course, but they won't find anything that justifies the more invasive research protocols. It was as close to reassurance as Nix was likely to offer, and Marcus appreciated it. "Thank you, Doctor." As the evening progressed, Marcus made his way through the crowd, accepting well wishes and sharing brief farewells with those he had come to consider friends. When he finally extracted himself from the gathering, he found Arya waiting near the exit. "Not one for long goodbyes?" she asked. "Not really," he admitted. "Too many speeches about my extraordinary achievements. I'd rather just do the job and skip the ceremony." Arya smiled. "That's why you're good at it. The ones who crave recognition rarely deserve it." She gestured toward a quieter corridor. "Walk with me?" They strolled through the less populated sections of the station, eventually finding their way to a small observation deck that offered a spectacular view of the starfield beyond Galatea. For a while, they simply stood in companionable silence, watching the distant points of light. "I've been promoted," Arya finally said. "Lieutenant Colonel, effective next month." "Congratulations," Marcus replied sincerely. "Well deserved." "The promotion comes with a new assignment, liaison to the Hagor Diplomatic Corps." She turned to face him. "It seems they specifically requested someone familiar with Alliance exceptional assets." Marcus groaned. "They're still fixated on that. Can you blame them? You shattered their understanding of human capabilities. They're naturally curious about whether you're an outlier or a harbinger of things to come." "And which do you think I am?" Marcus asked, genuinely interested in her assessment. Arya considered the question carefully. "I think you're neither. I think you're a reminder that we still don't fully understand human potential, physical, mental, or spiritual. You've pushed one boundary, but there are countless others waiting to be tested." She placed a hand lightly on his arm. "Whatever Earth Command decides, whatever they discover about why you can do what you do, remember that your value isn't in your genetics or your muscle mass. It's in how you choose to use your abilities." Marcus nodded, appreciating her perspective. "I'll remember." As his departure time approached, they made their way to the docking bay, where the transport to Earth awaited. The corridors were mostly empty at this hour, the station's night cycle in full effect. When they reached the airlock, Marcus turned to say a final farewell. "Lieutenant Colonel Voss," he said formally, offering a crisp salute. Arya returned it with equal formality, then surprised him by extending her hand. "It's been an honor, Specialist Hale." As he took her hand, she added more quietly, "Take care of yourself, Titan. Galatea will be watching for your return." The transport journey to Earth was long and uneventful, giving Marcus ample time to prepare himself for what awaited. He reviewed his service records, the official reports of the Hagor encounter, and the subsequent peace negotiations. He also spent hours in the transport's small gym, pushing himself through familiar routines that helped center his thoughts. When they finally reached Earth orbit, Marcus looked out at the blue-green planet with mixed emotions. It had been nearly 2 years since he'd set foot on humanity's homeworld, and longer still since he'd felt truly connected to it. His life as a competitive lifter seemed like a distant memory now, belonging to someone else entirely. The reception at Alliance headquarters was more subdued than he had feared. No media, no crowds, just a small delegation of officers and scientists who escorted him and Dr. Nix to a secure facility on the outskirts of New Geneva. There, over the course of several weeks, Marcus underwent a battery of tests, physical examinations, genetic analyses, performance assessments, psychological evaluations. Throughout it all, he maintained the quiet dignity that had become his hallmark on Galatea. He cooperated fully with the tests, but refused to be treated as a curiosity or a specimen. When one particularly enthusiastic researcher suggested a public demonstration of his abilities for morale purposes, Marcus firmly declined. "I'm a soldier, Not a circus performer, he stated simply. By the third week, patterns began to emerge from the data. His genetic profile showed several unusual variations, not artificial enhancements, but natural mutations that affected muscle fiber density, bone strength, and metabolic efficiency. The lead geneticist, Dr. Eleanor Chen, explained it to him in terms he could understand. "You're not superhuman, Specialist Hale," she said, reviewing the results with him. "You're human, just an extremely rare variation. Think of it as winning a genetic lottery with odds in the billions to one." "So I can't be replicated?" Marcus asked, unsure whether to feel relief or disappointment. "Not exactly. No. We can understand the mechanisms behind your abilities, perhaps even develop training protocols that help others maximize their natural potential. But creating more individuals with your specific capabilities would require genetic engineering on a scale that's currently beyond our technology, and beyond what our ethical frameworks would allow." It was, in many ways, the best possible outcome. Marcus wouldn't become the template for a program to create super soldiers, but his existence might still benefit the Alliance in less direct ways. As the evaluations concluded, Marcus was summoned to a final meeting with Admiral Rivera, the head of Alliance military operations. The Admiral's office overlooked the rebuilt Geneva skyline, a testament to humanity's resilience and ingenuity. "Specialist Hale," Rivera greeted him, rising from behind a sleek desk. "Please, sit." Marcus took the offered seat, maintaining a respectful posture as he waited for the Admiral to continue. "I've reviewed the reports from your evaluations, as well as the full account of your actions at Galatea Station." Rivera began. "Impressive, to say the least. You've become something of a legend within the ranks." "Thank you, sir." "The question now is what to do with you." Rivera activated a holographic display showing Marcus's service record. "You enlisted as a logistics specialist, but recent events have demonstrated your value extends far beyond moving supplies. Earth Command has been debating your future assignment for weeks." Marcus remained silent, knowing that his preferences would carry little weight in such high-level decisions. "Some want you here on Earth, as part of our elite special forces. Others believe you should return to Galatea as a visible deterrent to further Hagor aggression. Still others suggest a diplomatic role, leveraging the respect you've earned among the Hagor to strengthen our newfound peace." The Admiral deactivated the display and looked directly at Marcus. "Before I tell you our decision, I'd like to hear your thoughts. Where do you believe you can best serve the Alliance?" The question caught Marcus by surprise. He had expected orders, not consultation. After a moment of consideration, he answered honestly, "With respect, Admiral, I believe I can best serve where my abilities are needed, not where they're most visible. I joined the Alliance to be useful, not to be a symbol." Rivera nodded thoughtfully. "A commendable perspective. And if I told you that right now, you're needed as both." "Sir?" "The peace with the Hagor is still fragile. Specialist Hale. Your presence at Galatea has symbolic value that we'd be foolish to discard. But symbols alone don't build lasting peace. Actions do." The Admiral rose, moving to the window to gaze out at the city. "You'll be returned to Galatea Station, but with a new assignment. We're establishing a joint Terran-Hagor security force to patrol the border regions, a practical demonstration of our commitment to cooperation rather than conflict. Lieutenant Colonel Voss will oversee the Alliance contingent, and you will serve as her second-in-command." Marcus processed this information with surprise. "Second-in-command? Sir, I'm not an officer." Rivera turned back with a slight smile. "Not yet. You're being commissioned as a lieutenant, effective immediately. Your experience, judgment, and the respect you've earned make you uniquely qualified for this role, regardless of your unconventional path to it." It was the last thing Marcus had expected. Not just a return to Galatea, but a commission and a leadership role in a pioneering joint security initiative. The implications were significant, both personally and for the broader peace process. I'm honored, sir, he managed finally, and ready to serve in whatever capacity the Alliance requires. Good, Rivera said, because this won't be easy. You'll be working alongside Hagor officers, who may still view humans with suspicion. You'll need to be not just a symbol of strength, but a diplomat, a leader, and at times, a bridge between two very different cultures. I understand, sir. I hope you do, Rivera said, his tone growing more serious. Because this assignment carries weight beyond your personal capabilities. Lieutenant Hale, it represents our hope that strength can be directed toward peace rather than conflict, that the qualities that make us formidable in war can also make us valuable in alliance. The Admiral extended his hand. The transport back to Galatea leaves tomorrow morning. Lieutenant Colonel Voss has already been briefed on your new role. She expressed, and I quote, significant confidence in your ability to adapt to these expanded responsibilities. As Marcus shook the Admiral's hand, he felt a strange mixture of emotions, pride in the recognition, apprehension about the new responsibilities, but most of all, a sense of rightness. His journey from competitive lifter to Alliance soldier had taken an unexpected turn, but the destination felt appropriate. His strength would continue to serve a purpose greater than himself. The return journey to Galatea passed quickly, filled with preparation for his new role. Marcus studied the preliminary protocols for the Joint Security Force, familiarized himself with Hagor military structure and customs, and reviewed the diplomatic agreements that had been reached in his absence. When the transport finally docked at Galatea Station, he was surprised to find not just a formal reception party, but a gathering of station personnel, many of whom he had worked alongside during the crisis. Their applause as he disembarked was genuine and heartfelt, a welcome that acknowledged both the man and the symbol he had become. Commander Donovan was there, along with Kwan, Volkov, Matsuda, and other members of the Valkyrie crew. And at the center of the group stood Arya, now Lieutenant Colonel Voss, her expression conveying both professional respect and personal warmth. Welcome back, Lieutenant Hale, she said formally, offering a salute that he returned with precision. Then, more quietly, as they shook hands. Glad to have you back, Titan. We've got work to do. As the formal reception transitioned into a more relaxed gathering, Marcus found himself at the center of a circle of well-wishers and curious colleagues eager to hear about his time on Earth. He answered their questions patiently, downplaying the tests and evaluations while emphasizing the Alliance's commitment to the new Joint Security Initiative. Later, as the crowd thinned, he found a moment alone with Arya near one of the station's viewports. Beyond the reinforced glass, the stars shone with cold brilliance, a reminder of the vastness they were all part of, human and Hagor alike. So, Arya said, Lieutenant Hale, ready for your new responsibilities? As ready as I can be, Marcus replied honestly. It's not exactly what I imagined when I enlisted, but then, nothing about my service has been standard so far. Arya smiled. Standard is overrated. The Alliance needs exceptional people willing to take on exceptional challenges. You've proven yourself more than capable. We'll see, Marcus said. Working with the Hagor will be interesting. Already is, Arya confirmed. Their delegation arrives tomorrow to begin the joint force integration. Their commander specifically requested to meet the human who lifted the impossible weight. Marcus groaned softly. Still that, is it? It will always be part of who you are, Arya said. But not the only part, not anymore. She gestured toward the stars beyond the viewport. Out there, strength takes many forms. The Hagor are beginning to understand that. Thanks in part to you. Now we have the opportunity to build something that harnesses all our strengths, theirs and ours, toward a common purpose. Marcus nodded, seeing the wisdom in her words. His extraordinary physical power had opened this door, but it would take different kinds of strength to walk through it. Diplomatic strength, moral strength, the strength of character and conviction. "I'm ready," he said and meant it. As they stood together, looking out at the stars, Marcus felt the burden of his exceptional abilities settle more comfortably on his shoulders. He was still Titan, still defined in part by what he could lift, what he could move, what impossible feats he could perform. But he was also Lieutenant Marcus Hale of the Terran Alliance, second in command of a pioneering joint security force, a bridge between two species finding their way toward peace. His strength had found its purpose, and in that purpose, Marcus had found himself. The day of the Hagor delegation's arrival brought a mixture of anticipation and tension to Galatea Station. Despite the formal peace agreements, decades of mistrust and conflict couldn't be erased overnight. Security was heightened throughout the station, though careful efforts had been made to make these measures unobtrusive, a sign of caution rather than hostility. Marcus stood at attention in his new officer's uniform, positioned slightly behind and to the right of Arya as they waited in the main docking bay. Commander Donovan stood center, with a small honor guard flanking the reception area. The diplomatic protocols had been carefully negotiated, balancing Hagor customs with Alliance traditions to create a ceremony that would respect both cultures. "Nervous?" Arya asked quietly, her eyes still fixed forward. "A little," Marcus admitted. "Different kind of pressure than lifting weights." "Just be yourself," she advised. That's what impressed them in the first place. The docking bay's massive doors began to cycle open, indicating that the Hagor diplomatic vessel had successfully completed its docking procedures. Moments later, the airlock hissed open, revealing the Hagor delegation. At their head walked a familiar figure, Colonel Zorg, now wearing ceremonial armor that marked him as the designated military representative of the Hagor High Command. Behind him came a mix of warriors and what appeared to be civilian officials, each bearing insignia indicating their specific role in the delegation. "Commander Donovan," Zorg greeted formally, placing his fist against his chest in the traditional Hagor salute. "Galatea Station extends its welcome to the Hagor Provisional Diplomatic Corps." Zorg returned the greeting with equal formality, then added something in the Hagor language that the translation systems rendered as, "We come with open hands and clear eyes, seeking the path of mutual strength." The initial exchange of formalities continued for several minutes, with both sides carefully observing the protocols that had been established. Marcus maintained his position, aware that several members of the Hagor delegation were studying him with undisguised interest. When the formal reception concluded, Donovan invited the delegation to a preparatory briefing in the station's conference center. As the group moved through the station corridors, Zorg fell into step beside Marcus. "Lieutenant Hale," the Hagor officer acknowledged, "your new rank suits you." "Thank you, Colonel," Marcus replied. "I'm still adjusting to it." Zorg nodded. Leadership is a different kind of strength. One discovers this quickly in positions of command. There was something different about the colonel's manner, a subtle shift from their previous encounters. The wariness remained, but it was now tempered with a measure of respect that hadn't been present before. "I understand you will be serving as second in command of the Joint Security Force," Zorg continued. "An interesting choice by your superiors." "The Alliance believes I have something to contribute to the initiative," Marcus said carefully. "Indeed." Zorg's expression was unreadable. "As do we. Commander Drac has specifically requested assignment to the Joint Force. He believes there is much to learn from your techniques." Marcus nearly missed a step in surprise. Commander Drac, the Hagor champion he had defeated in the lifting contest, had requested to serve alongside him. That was unexpected, to say the least. "I look forward to working with him," Marcus managed diplomatically. Zorg made a sound that might have been the Hagor equivalent of a chuckle. He has spent the past months training extensively. Lieutenant, I believe he hopes for a rematch at some point. Before Marcus could formulate a response, they reached the conference center, and Zorg moved ahead to rejoin the main delegation. Arya, who had been walking several paces ahead, dropped back to join Marcus. "What was that about?" she asked quietly. "Apparently, Commander Drac has requested assignment to the Joint Force," Marcus replied, "and has been training for a rematch." Arya's lips quirked in a suppressed smile. "Competition is deeply embedded in Hagor culture. You've become a benchmark for him to measure himself against." "Great," Marcus muttered. "Just what I need. A 7-foot alien with a grudge and something to prove." "Look at it positively," Arya suggested. "You've created a personal connection that transcends species and political boundaries. That's exactly the kind of bridge we need for this initiative to succeed." She had a point, though Marcus wasn't entirely convinced that Drac's interest was as constructive as she implied. Still, it was a starting point, a shared experience that might indeed serve as foundation for working together. The briefing that followed was extensive, covering the operational parameters of the Joint Security Force, chain of command protocols, communication systems, patrol routes, and response procedures. Both sides contributed to the discussion, raising questions and offering suggestions that reflected their respective military doctrines and concerns. Marcus found himself genuinely impressed by the Hagor approach to tactical problems, direct and efficient, but with a sophistication that belied their reputation as mere brutes. Their suggestions for patrol formations, in particular, demonstrated a deep understanding of spatial dynamics and resource allocation. When the briefing concluded, the delegation separated into smaller groups for specialized discussions. Marcus found himself assigned to a tactical planning session with several Hagor officers, including, as promised, Commander Drac. The Hagor warrior acknowledged Marcus with a formal salute, his expression giving away nothing. "Lieutenant Hale, we meet again under different circumstances." "Commander Drac," Marcus returned the salute. "I look forward to working together." "As do I," Drac replied, though whether there was anticipation or challenge in his tone, Marcus couldn't determine. The tactical session proved surprisingly productive. Once the initial awkwardness passed, both human and Hagor officers focused on the task at hand, analyzing potential security threats and developing response protocols that leverage the strengths of both species. Marcus contributed his logistics expertise, while Drac offered insights into Hagor military doctrine that would help the Joint Force anticipate potential challenges. By the time the session concluded, Marcus felt cautiously optimistic about the prospects for cooperation. The Hagor officers, while still formal and somewhat reserved, had engaged constructively and demonstrated a genuine commitment to making the joint initiative work. As they were preparing to adjourn, Drac approached Marcus privately. "Lieutenant, I would consider it an honor if you would join me for a training session during your off-duty hours. Our methods differ substantially from yours, and I believe there would be mutual benefit in exchange." The invitation, formally phrased but genuine in intent, represented a significant gesture from a Hagor warrior of Drac's standing. To refuse would be both diplomatically unwise and personally discourteous. "I would be honored, Commander," Marcus replied, "though I should warn you that my training focuses on strength rather than combat techniques." Drac's expression shifted into what might have been the Hagor equivalent of a smile. "Precisely why I am interested. Lieutenant, strength without technique is limited. Technique without strength is equally so. Perhaps together, we can develop something greater than either alone." It was a profound statement from a culture that had, until recently, viewed humans primarily as adversaries rather than potential partners. In that moment, Marcus realized that the symbolic value of his contest with Drac had extended far beyond a simple display of physical prowess. It had created a foundation for mutual respect, upon which something more substantial might be built. I'll make the arrangements, Marcus said. And I look forward to learning from your methods as well. As the Hagor delegation departed for their temporary quarters, Arya rejoined Marcus in the now empty conference room. How did it go? She asked. Better than expected, Marcus admitted. They're serious about making this work. Drac even invited me to train with him. Arya raised an eyebrow. That's significant. Hagor warriors don't typically share their training methods with outsiders. I got that impression, Marcus said. It feels like an opportunity, not just for me personally, but for what we're trying to build here. Exactly, Arya agreed. This is how lasting peace begins. Not with grand treaties signed by distant officials, but with individuals finding common ground despite their differences. She gestured toward the tactical displays they had been working with. What did you think of their approach? Impressive, Marcus said honestly. They think differently than we do, but there's a logic to it that I can appreciate. Their formations maximize the individual strengths of each unit while minimizing vulnerabilities. Not unlike a well-designed weight training program, Arya observed with a slight smile. Marcus chuckled. I hadn't thought of it that way, but you're right. It's about understanding your capabilities, pushing limits while respecting boundaries, and building systematically toward greater capacity. See? You're already finding the connections, Arya said. That's why you're here, Lieutenant. Not just because you can lift impossible weights, but because you understand the principles behind building strength, physical, tactical, and now, diplomatic. As they left the conference room, Marcus found himself reflecting on the journey that had brought him to this point. From competition stages to military service, from logistics specialist to officer, from individual performer to team leader. Each step had built upon the last, creating something he could never have anticipated when he first enlisted. The next morning, Marcus reported for his first official duty as second-in-command of the Joint Security Force. The operations center had been specially configured to accommodate both human and Hagor personnel, with adaptive interfaces and environmental controls that made the space comfortable for both species. Arya was already there, reviewing patrol schedules with a mixed team of Alliance and Hagor officers. She acknowledged Marcus with a nod as he entered, then continued her briefing without interruption. It was a subtle but important message. In this space, they were all professionals with a job to do, regardless of species or background. As the days passed, the joint force began to take shape. Initial awkwardness gave way to cautious cooperation, and eventually to something approaching genuine teamwork. The first mixed patrols were deployed along the border regions, their very existence a powerful symbol of the new relationship between the Alliance and the Hagor. Marcus's training session with Drac proved particularly significant. In the station's largest gymnasium, specially reinforced to accommodate Hagor physiology, the two champions from different worlds shared their respective approaches to physical development. Drac demonstrated Hagor resistance techniques that emphasized sustained power output rather than maximum force, while Marcus introduced human methodologies focused on progressive overload and periodization. What began as a single exchange evolved into regular sessions that attracted other participants from both species. Soon, a small but growing group of human and Hagor personnel were training together, adapting and combining techniques from both traditions into a hybrid approach that played to the strengths of each physiology. This cooperation in the gym translated to improved coordination in the field. The joint patrols reported increasing effectiveness as they learned to leverage their complementary capabilities. Human adaptability and creative problem-solving paired well with Hagor endurance and tactical discipline, creating teams that were more effective than either species operating alone. 3 months into the initiative, an unexpected crisis provided the ultimate test of this newfound cooperation. A rogue asteroid, diverted from its natural course by an uncharted gravitational anomaly, was on a collision course with a small research outpost in the border region. The facility, jointly operated by human and Hagor scientists, had minimal defenses and no evacuation capabilities. The nearest joint patrol, led by Marcus and including Commander Drac, received the distress call and responded immediately. When they arrived at the outpost, the situation was grim. The asteroid was too large to be destroyed by their ship's weapons, and too close for a standard evacuation. The outpost personnel, 12 humans and 8 Hagor, faced almost certain death. "Options?" Marcus asked, as they assessed the situation from orbit. "The outpost has a shield generator," one of the human officers reported, "but it's not powerful enough to withstand an impact of this magnitude." "What about reinforcing it?" Drax suggested. "If we could boost the generator's output?" "The system's already at maximum capacity," another officer replied. "We'd need a secondary power source to make any difference." Marcus studied the technical schematics of the outpost, an idea forming in his mind. "What about our ship's reactor? Could we establish a power transfer?" The ship's engineer shook her head. "The interfaces aren't compatible, and there's no time to fabricate an adapter." "Then we need a different approach," Marcus said. He turned to Drac. "The outpost has an external maintenance bay with heavy equipment, correct?" Drac nodded, beginning to follow Marcus's thinking. "Yes, including industrial-grade shield projectors for maintenance work on the outer hull. If we could reposition those projectors to reinforce the main shield at the projected impact point," Marcus began. We could create a layered defense," Drac finished. "But those projectors weigh several tons each. The outpost's handling equipment isn't designed to reposition them quickly enough." The two looked at each other, a silent understanding passing between them. "We don't need handling equipment," Marcus said. "We need strength." What followed was a daring operation that combined human ingenuity with Hagor endurance. Their ship docked with the outpost, and Marcus and Drac, along with 2 other Hagor warriors, ventured onto the exterior in specialized hardsuits. Working together, they physically repositioned the massive shield projectors, creating a reinforced zone at the calculated impact point. The work was grueling, even for individuals of their exceptional strength. The projectors had never been designed to be moved manually, and the vacuum of space added additional challenges. But the training they had shared over the previous months paid dividends. They understood each other's capabilities and limitations, coordinating their efforts with minimal verbal communication. When the asteroid struck, the layered shields held, barely. The outpost suffered damage, but remained intact, and not a single life was lost. What could have been a tragedy became instead a powerful testament to what humans and Hagor could accomplish together. News of the successful operation spread quickly, both within the Alliance and throughout Hagor territory. Media outlets on both sides highlighted the cooperation between former adversaries, with particular emphasis on the image of Marcus and Drac working side by side to save lives. Upon their return to Galatea Station, they were greeted as heroes, not as human or Hagor, but as representatives of a new era of cooperation. Commander Donovan and Colonel Zorg jointly presented commendations, with Zorg noting that strength shared is strength multiplied. In the aftermath, Marcus found himself reflecting on the journey that had brought him to this point. His extraordinary physical power, once merely a source of personal accolades, had become something more, a bridge between species, a tool for saving lives, a symbol of what was possible when strength was directed toward construction rather than destruction. As he stood on the observation deck, looking out at the stars that both separated and connected the worlds of humanity and the Hagor, Arya joined him in silent contemplation. "Thinking deep thoughts?" she asked after a moment. "Just reflecting on how things change," Marcus replied. "When I first came to Galatea, I was trying to escape being defined by my strength. Now I've accepted it as part of who I am, but not the only part." Arya nodded. "That's what growth looks like, not rejecting what makes us unique, but putting it in proper perspective, using our gifts in service to something larger than ourselves. They stood together in companionable silence, watching as a joint patrol vessel departed the station, carrying both human and Hagor personnel on its mission to safeguard their shared frontier. It was a simple image, but a powerful one. Former enemies now partners, their combined strengths greater than the sum of their parts. "What happens next?" Marcus asked finally. "We keep building," Arya replied simply. "Day by day, patrol by patrol, challenge by challenge. Peace isn't an event. It's a process that requires constant attention and nurturing." Marcus nodded, understanding the wisdom in her words. The burden of his exceptional abilities remained, but it had been transformed, from a weight that isolated him to a responsibility that connected him to others. He was still Titan, still capable of feats that defied ordinary human limitations. But now those abilities served a purpose beyond personal glory or even military advantage. In finding that purpose, in using his unique strength to build bridges rather than barriers, Marcus had discovered something profound. True power wasn't measured by what one could lift, but by what one could support. And in supporting others, human and Hagor alike, he had found the meaning he had sought when he first joined the Alliance. As another ship approached the station, this one bearing the insignia of the newly formed Joint Scientific Corps, Marcus felt a sense of quiet satisfaction. The future remained uncertain, with challenges and opportunities yet to be discovered. But the foundation had been laid for something truly remarkable, a partnership of different species, each bringing their unique strengths to create something greater than either could achieve alone. It was, he reflected, the most important weight he had ever helped to lift.